guests. We have as our guest presenter tonight, Dr. Lee Greer. It's around 2003, thereabout, after writing my first book, that circumstances led our path to cross. And at the time, Dr. Greer, was in his PhD program at Loma Linda University. He has since graduated from there 2007. And if I'm not mistaken, he graduated at the top of his class with his PhD in biology. He has had an extremely successful career in terms of research and writing. Lee is one of the sharpest minds I've ever met. He is very much knowledgeable in his field, biology, the sciences, and his knowledge base of theology is amazing. He is one of those persons who's extremely well read across many disciplines. He has taught biology at La Sierra University and physical anthropology. He has also taught at the University of California, Riverside. His current research area is in ancient human DNA and some other sophisticated things which he may need to tell you himself. But he is a research scientist, so he is doing research particularly with DNA and the complexities of the human genome, which has direct bearing, impact, implications for the COVID vaccine. So he's well qualified to guide us in the discussion tonight. Questions have been submitted. I think I have collated around 35 to 40 questions thereabout, which I have submitted to Dr. Greer. So the questions will guide his presentation, and then we will have an open Q&A so that you can have follow-up. Please feel free to disagree. He doesn't have a problem with that. Just let's do everything we do with love and respect in the name of Jesus. I'm going to ask a special favor. Please bear with me. Normally during a presentation like this, the chat is very, very active. I'm going to ask you, my brothers, my sisters, don't engage in any chatter right now. Just listen. Because there are many people who are voicing their opinion during the chatter, etc., and you can have a parallel meeting going on in the chat. I'm going to ask you, as much as possible, avoid voicing your opinion. Just listen as much as you possibly can. Listen, listen, listen. And then, having listened, you do not have to agree or disagree, but at least you would have heard. Because I do not see how you can hear while engaging in back and forth and answering questions to each other. It's not the best thing to do. So I'm going to ask you kindly, let's simmer down on the chatter and just spend some time to listen. Is that fair enough? Am I asking too much? Okay, great. So let's try our best to listen, and the questions, as much as possible, will be answered. And please feel free. I will try my best to recognize the hands. Pastor Moses, give me some help in recognizing the hands in line when the Q&A time comes, so that we want to be fair to everyone, and we want everyone to have their questions answered. So God bless you, very good. Dr. Greer, welcome. This is Deacon Ministries International sponsoring this presentation tonight, and I'm so pleased to have you. You've been a great friend, and I know you will serve us well tonight. God bless you. Over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Quentin. I really appreciate it, and everyone feel free to call me Lee. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening, all the way from California, and you in beautiful Jamaica. So I would like this to be question driven as much as possible, but all right, so let me go to some of your questions now, if I may. And Clinton, I have approximately 25 questions. I don't see 35 questions, but I do see about 25 questions, which have been submitted to me. Well, 26, 20, 27, I know 28. Okay, I know of a couple others too, roughly. All right. Are the COVID-19 vaccines really vaccines, or are they just a hybrid of something else resembling vaccines? The COVID-19 vaccines are in fact vaccines. Yes. Correct. They are a vaccine. I will say something about the Johnson and Johnson version in a little bit. Maybe now is a good time to say that. There are a number of vaccines which have been made, not all of them made by big pharmaceutical companies, which I generally despise, but some of them made in Russia, China, Cuba, and other places as well. And there are attempts by the G7, the industrial nations, to prevent, sadly, to prevent countries which have the capabilities, many countries, including your own, I'm sure, have the capabilities to manufacture the vaccines, but because of patent laws, they are being prevented from doing that. When Dr. Sabin made discovered and worked on the polio vaccine, someone asked him, well, have you decided to patent it? And he said, no. He said, would you patent the sunshine? He said, this is to prevent the deaths and the paralyzation and death of children by infantile paralysis. I am not going to patent this and try to make myself wealthy from it. Well, sadly, these things are a business too. So anyway, they are genuine vaccines, but some of the slowness of the vaccines getting to some places in the world are because of the frankly, international capitalist greed, so that first world nations get the first pick of these things, all of that sort of thing. All right, so it is the Johnson & Johnson one. It is the only one that does something that is a little bit experimental. It uses an adenovirus vector to transport the COVID the COVID RNA vaccine in, and it is not as effective as the Moderna, as the Sputnik Russia ones, or as the Pfizer or the Cuban one. Okay, now adenoviruses have their place. They are used in cancer treatments and so forth, but that's real. That part is experimental, and so that would be the one that I have caveats about. Not because there have been, the published research show there have not been a whole lot of problems, but they're just not as effective for starters, and there are some problems because it is a new technology there. Question number 2. It is said that there are nanoparticles embedded within the vaccines that alter our DNA. How true is this? That is not true. Okay, there are certain viruses which do alter our DNA. They are naturally occurring viruses. I will share my screen for a moment. This is all I'm going to share my screen for. This is just plopped down in the middle of the human genome on chromosome Y. And here are a number of genes here, the BMX gene, the CLTRN gene. Here's the ACE2 gene, which is one of the things affected in our immune system. If you go down, this is human chromosome, and here's a comparison with all of our relatives, okay? And here, what you find down here, these signs, lines, LTRs, and all of these are examples of ancient retroviral DNA that has embedded itself from past infections within our genome, okay? And they are genomic hitchhikers. They basically ride around in our genome. And in fact, approximately 45% of our genome is filled with this stuff. Just shows how tough and resilient our genomes are. All right, I won't show you any more technical slides for right now. So it is not true. The COVID virus is not a retrovirus. It does not transcribe anything into your genome, and the vaccines that go in there also do not transcribe and put anything in your genome. In order to do that, you have to have a particular enzyme which only comes from retroviruses or other retro elements. The coronavirus is not one of those. All right, the AIDS virus is, though. Okay, that's a difference. The AIDS virus is one of those viruses. Is it true that COVID-19 vaccines lower the body's immunity once you have taken them? No, that is not true. What it does is it excites an immune response. It basically makes your body think that it has had COVID and arouse a response to it, even though you don't have the major symptoms that go with COVID. All right, number 4. What about the trial period within which the vaccines were tested? Were they long enough? The issue with RNA viruses, because you can produce them much quicker, you do not have to require as long a period of time. But I can show you the references, and they're freely available to you, that these viruses these vaccines were tested on thousands of people with very few numbers of side effects. And I'm going to discuss those very specifically in a moment. Is it true that in a few years' time, thousands of people will be dying from the vaccines? No, it is not true that. First of all, the vaccines haven't been around long enough for somebody to do that. I don't know if people were looking in a crystal ball or something, but no, the vaccines aren't going to kill people there in a few years' time. There is a possibility of you dying from COVID today, though. That is a possibility. What is the ratio of those who are dying unvaccinated versus those that are vaccinated? Well, those who are vaccinated and don't get the virus, none of them die from COVID. Okay. And those who are dying unvaccinated, well, you've got thousands to 1, millions to 1 there on that. Now, someone is going to ask me, what about reactions to vaccines? Okay, it just so happens, and those of you who have had a COVID vaccine or have had other vaccines, one of the first questions that they ask you is, have you ever had a reaction to a vaccine before? And that is because some of the preservatives in vaccines cause some people to have an immune allergic reaction. For instance, some people cannot eat peanuts. Some people cannot eat cashews or bananas or pineapple or so forth, or be stung by a bee. What happens to them if they are is that their body goes into an acute immune overreaction. Their airways start to close, and they have to give them a quick shot of epinephrine in order to relax the airways, to cause the swelling and all of that to go down. That's why they keep you for 15 to 30 minutes after you have one of these vaccines, because an anaphylactic reaction like that, an allergic reaction, doesn't happen 5 years later or 6 months later or three days later. It happens within minutes. So they want to make sure that you don't die from an allergic reaction to preservatives in the vaccine. Some people cannot take certain preservatives, and therefore they have other options. If you are somebody, there are ways of dealing with that. If you're somebody who has had allergic reactions to bee stings, to vaccines before, such as a bee sting allergy or a peanut allergy. In other words, they're going to observe you, and if you start to have a reaction, an allergic reaction like that, they will give you an epinephrine shot right there, sort of like people carry around an EpiPen with them to fix that. All right. Historically, did a number of people die from the vaccines when they took other vaccines? For example, measles, tetanus, flu, and you could add on smallpox and so forth. Historically, there have always been a small group of people who have had severe reactions to vaccines, very small. During the old stages of variolation in traditional medicine, sometimes you could give someone a case of smallpox, which could kill them in the process of trying to vaccinate them. So there are cases when people have had allergic reactions, or when people have had other complications which enabled a small allergic reaction to cause them to go into cardiac failure, or if they had congestive heart failure, like fluid around their hearts, enlarged heart from other health problems, things like that. How safe are the vaccines? Well, I'm happy to share those with you. They have been tested with very little reaction in thousands of cases. In thousands of people before they were put out. Now millions of people have in fact taken the vaccines, with reactions being very, very few and small and far between. To show you the degree of caution which people have had on this, from one of the vaccines in one child in England, I believe they had a heart reaction, and I'm not sure if it was with the Johnson & Johnson, with the adenovirus one, which potentially could cross the blood-brain barrier, and a child did have a cardiovascular crisis that came and did die, and because of that case, they have held off for several months of giving vaccines to younger children until they had done more testing. Now it is considered that they have started to vaccinate children down to the age of 12, and they anticipate that soon the age will be 5 when vaccines can be given. Now, as far as giving babies vaccines, that's been done for years now with measles, mumps, rubella, now chickenpox. When I was a kid, of course, there was no chickenpox vaccine, so I actually got the chickenpox, which means I'm in danger of shingles later in life, a very painful condition, because that virus never completely leaves. But my children had the chickenpox vaccine, so they didn't get either chickenpox, and they won't have to worry about shingles later in life either. All right, here's another set of questions. So it said there have been reports of adverse reactions to the vaccines, for example, blindness, inability to use the arm that was injected, loss of sexual prowess, inability to impregnate or get impregnated, and even sudden death. Can you address these concerns, as these reports are contributing to vaccine hesitancy among my family members, especially my mom, who has multiple underlying conditions? Well, part of this answer to this question is relating to allergic reactions, which people can have on rare occasions, which means that you should always stay near someone who can give an epinephrine shot in case you are allergic to a preservative in the vaccine. Blindness, have not heard of any case of that. Inability to use the arm that was injected. Well, the arm that was injected can be sore. The question is, why is it sore? Why is it inflamed? Why is it feverish? It's because your body is mounting an immune reaction. In other words, it's strengthening basically you give your arm a little case of COVID so that your lungs don't have to have it. That's essentially what's happened. Loss of sexual prowess, not a result of any vaccine that I've ever heard of. I can tell you something that can cause loss of sexual prowess is poor cardiovascular health. Wrong diet, lack of exercise, those sorts of things can cause loss of that. Inability to impregnate or get pregnant, not a result of vaccines. There can be other problems there. Sudden death, again, if you have a severe allergic reaction and no one is there to attend to you, just like if you were stung by a bee or ate a peanut and no one was there to help you, that could be serious, yes. So multiple underlying conditions, which perhaps some of these are some of the the next question was, my husband has 6 different complaints: stroke, heart attacks, sugar, which is diabetes, prostate, seizures, and piles. I'm not sure what piles is. Can he take the vaccine? Well, 2 things. If he has all of those conditions, by all means, keep him from getting COVID, because COVID would probably kill him. Okay, so by all means, first of all, make sure he's not exposed to anybody who is carrying COVID. Okay. Can he take the vaccine? With the advice of his doctor, he can. Yes, matter of fact, he might well be a good candidate to especially take the vaccine, because you don't want him to get the actual disease. Someone young and in their prime may not have as severe a case, and so they would survive there. So again, always with consulting with his doctor. I don't give medical advice personally. I'm not a MD myself, but I would certainly, my wife has given injections to lots of older people who have underlying chronic and other conditions, and that will help ensure that they either do not get COVID or get a very light case of it. How long do COVID-19 vaccines protect people? Well, vaccines, just like having a disease, the presence of antibodies in your system goes down over time. And for some diseases, like for instance, when I was living in the Middle East, there was a cholera epidemic. Cholera is a bacteria. We had to take booster shots every three months during that entire pandemic, so that we wouldn't get, to help protect us against cholera. So it declines over time, and that is also true of a coronavirus. It certainly is true of flu vaccines, because flu evolves the hemagglutinin and the flu virus receptors on its surface change and evolve very fast, and so the flu vaccines are only partially effective. The COVID-19 vaccine is certainly much more effective than the flu vaccines, which they keep having to make new ones every year. Medical healthcare professionals tend to take it, but people that are not exposed a lot sometimes skip it, or older people can take it too. So that will vary. There will be a decline over a period of months of the presence of antibodies from COVID, from the COVID vaccine. If one has had COVID oneself, there will also be a period of decline over the months of the antibodies which were built up during one's COVID infection as well. All right, this question is, how effective are the vaccines against new variants of the virus that cause COVID-19? Well, since the basic structure of the virus is the same, the protein coat structure and the spike proteins is the same, it is quite effective. What we mean by variants of it is that means there are single amino acid changes that occur in the outer shell of the virus on the spike proteins that can have new increased infectivity. Where do these sometimes more infective variants come from? They have originated, the Delta variant, for instance, originated in one of the largest unvaccinated populations or low frequency vaccination populations in the world, which was India. That's where the Delta variant originated. There's a Lambda variant, which is in Bolivia, which is also making the rounds. There is some good things about it. In some ways, the Delta variant seems less virulent for some people than the previous COVID-19. Others, it can be a real problem. So, for instance, my wife is a nurse, her friend is a nurse, and her friend's sister, who was pregnant, she and her family they did not agree to take the vaccine. They all got COVID, and they all began to recover. But the pregnant lady, she got very sick with the COVID, and they had to remove her child early, at 5 weeks early, in fact, to save the child's life and hers. They put them both on oxygen. By the time they intubate you with oxygen, meaning that the pneumonia is so bad that they have to put a tube, they have to sedate you and put a tube in to help you breathe, 95% of people that have COVID at that stage do not survive. And the last I heard of this poor lady, even the baby is pulling out of it, but this poor lady, she began to exhibit jaundice, and she's going into and a hemorrhagic condition within her organs, and so she was going to liver failure, organ failure. So she sadly will not survive. That was a preventable death. Sadly, that was a preventable death. If she had been vaccinated, she could, even while pregnant, she would not have had that problem there. All right, let's see, which COVID vaccine is the best? I don't work for any of these companies. I don't recommend any of them. I'm not going to put one above the others. I will say the ones that I would have cautions about: the Johnson & Johnson one, but the Moderna one, the Pfizer one, the Sputnik one, the Cuban one, and the Chinese one. Any of those are quite good vaccines. Are very good vaccines, actually. And I can show you the published research on a number of them. If you have had the Johnson & Johnson one, it's a little bit less effective, but it will give you protection as well. Is COVID-19 a natural disaster or man-made? In other words, was COVID-19 created by scientists in a lab? Is it truly a pandemic or a plandemic? Well, okay. The issue with I do not so there are diseases which are spreading because of human activity. So something can be exacerbated by human activity, like the way we travel today, or like climate change, which causes more tropical diseases to move north, and so forth. I think that what is happening on the research on this, they have been trying to trace the source of the virus. There is some concern that it escaped from the Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China. Okay. There are certainly pandemic, there are certainly coronaviruses which are quite infective. I don't know for sure whether it was influenced by any work done there. I don't think that has been confirmed yet. I know that they had to shut down their facility because people did get sick in the facility. Certainly, I don't think it was released on purpose. If it was, it was an accident. But plenty of diseases, like many of the deadly flus, cross naturally the species barrier from fowl or bats or swine or so forth, and or primates, like in the Ebola case, and so forth, and cross the species barrier. And they may be slight diseases in one species, but when they get into our species, they can be deadly. So that's what my answer would be to that. Was COVID engineered by powerful men who want to control population growth, and is Bill Gates a part of this conspiracy? No. COVID, if one wanted to control population, COVID's not your instrument, because COVID only kills like 2% of the people that contract it. So it's not a population control virus. Smallpox before, which killed, or the Black Death in Europe, the bubonic plague, which killed between a quarter and a third of Europeans in the 1300s. that changed the trajectory of population, just like the 1918 flu did, and like smallpox. But those were not man-made. Although one must say that there were imperial Europeans, colonists and missionaries who sometimes did deliberately infect natives in the New World with smallpox as part of their drive to colonize. So sadly, that of course is genocidal there. All right, how well does the vaccine protect people with underlying illnesses? Well, the vaccine protects you against COVID. Okay, it cannot protect you from other illnesses, but if you have other illnesses that could weaken your immune system, make you more susceptible to COVID or more susceptible to pneumonia or to cardiac conditions, the vaccine can protect you in that sense from some of the underlying illnesses, chronic illnesses you may have. All right, is it safe for persons with sinus and respiratory breathing problems to take the vaccines? Yes, it is. Matter of fact, better to have the vaccine than to have the disease. If you have respiratory problems, you don't want this disease. I can guarantee you the way that people suffer and kind of drown in their own lung fluids with the disease, you don't want it. It's like any severe pneumonia, or if someone breathed an open flame and seared the inside of their lungs, you can die very quickly. Is it true that persons who take the vaccine will die in 2 years? No, that is not true. Whoever said that claim, and I've heard that claim before, says something that they cannot possibly know, and I can only think that there was something malicious in somebody making that claim. Is it true that persons who have taken the Johnson & Johnson vaccine later develop serious complications such as brain tumors and blood clots? Okay, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which I cautioned you against earlier because of the use of the adenovirus vector, because that virus, that can cross the blood-brain barrier. In certain sensitive people, you could have, not brain tumors, we haven't had, it's not a brain tumor, but is possible to have a clot there. And so that's only been documented in very few cases. However, COVID itself will give you blood clots that could go to your brain. So COVID itself can give you a heart attack or a stroke as well. All right, why Robert Malone, the inventor of the mRNA technology, disagrees with mass vaccination, and why the mainstream and pharmaceutical industry banning other treatments that have proven to be effective to the COVID-19 virus. India and Mexico is using it. All right. Okay. So this is a very interesting case here. Robert Malone, who is an RNA scientist, and has cautioned against. Now, sometimes some of what he has said has been misrepresented, but he, in the course of one interview, said this. Which made me know that he didn't know some aspects of the biology outside of his own field, which worries me. He said that one cannot vaccinate one's way to herd immunity. Now, what do we mean by herd immunity? Herd immunity is when, let's just take the case within North America, the West Nile virus arrived on the East Coast from Africa. And it affected birds. Thousands of birds were falling out of the sky dead with this virus. In 2003, the virus reached the west coast of North America, and we saw whole fields with dead blackbirds there. Okay. Now, the population of blackbirds took a big dip, all right, from the West Nile virus, which is transmitted by a mosquito, by the way. And then you had the survivors had a certain amount of immunity to it, okay, and the populations of crows have bounced back up again now, so that it's pretty common to see large flocks of crows again. Herd immunity is when a enough of the population has become immune to a new disease which has come through, so that the incidence of the disease are very low. For someone to claim that we cannot vaccinate our way to herd immunity, they in fact are ignoring the history of smallpox, polio, measles, mumps, and we go typhoid fever, yellow fever, etc. Go down the list of diseases which are so rare that most of us do not know anybody in our lives who have ever had any of these diseases. May have heard of somebody that our grandmother knew or something that had one of those diseases, and yet these diseases were voracious killers of people just a few decades, and in some cases a few hundred years ago. So yes, vaccination can help increase herd immunity. Why Robert Malone said otherwise, I have no idea. When he has the example of many successful herd immunity developed by vaccination against very, very vicious infectious diseases, which used to kill humans in the millions before. There is another question which I will add to this question here, which was asked to me by another friend. As you can imagine, I received lots of queries from different people asking about different things, where they said, you know how antibiotic resistance can build if people overuse antibiotics when treating bacterial infections, so that you can have a methicillin-resistant staph infections in hospitals and all of that. Won't that happen with vaccines as well? Well, the answer is a simple no, and here's why. The antibiotics are poisons which kill bacteria, okay? And so therefore, a small segment of the bacteria that survive those poisons, those antibiotics, become resistant to those antibiotics. And that's why those of us who are evolutionary biologists have been telling doctors, please do not overprescribe antibiotics. You are not doing favors to your patients by doing that. For one thing, you can create resistant strains of bacteria. For secondly, you are killing the good bacteria in the people's guts, in their intestines, which help them to digest their food and help them to maintain a healthy ecosystem within them. And so therefore they need to take yogurt, and they need to take other things to restore what has been destroyed by antibiotics. The reason why a vaccine isn't like that is because the vaccine does not kill the virus. The vaccine helps your body mount a defense against the virus. That is why the vaccine actually helps prevent the spread and lower the frequency in the population of transmission of the virus. And it is not at all analogous to antibiotics and bacteria. All right, next question. What do you tell the families of the people who died from the vaccine? The same thing I would tell, and that would be in the rare cases of anaphylactic shock from allergy to a preservative or something like that. I would tell them the same thing I would tell anybody who died from the disease, of which there are millions now. All right, is we can only mourn their loss with them. I mean, it's a tragedy. Myself, I will be asking the question, did you leave before they had checked you for a reaction so they could give you an epinephrine shot if you had one? I wouldn't ask that to somebody in the midst of grieving, but that question would be bothering me in the back of my mind. Yeah. This is a question for you in the voice. Okay, there is another question which was asked. Someone left me a voice message, and the question went like this. Is it not disturbing God's creation to insert something foreign into our DNA in order that could cause us to that could change the way that nature made us, or that God made us, what is natural. Okay, first of all, what I would say is this, and the question also included this part too, and that basically that a foreign RNA can come in and cause your cells to produce a foreign protein. Well, first of all, I would say this: that's exactly what all viruses do in your body anyway, is hijack the RNA function of your own cells and make your body sick by catching the virus. Okay. As far as changing your DNA code, as I mentioned earlier, the coronavirus is not a retrovirus. It is not the same thing which I showed you here. It's not the same as the retroviruses, which can leave lasting fossils within your genome of past retroviral infections. The AIDS virus is not the coronavirus. So I would say by doing that subject, by taking the vaccine, you are not putting anything permanently into your DNA code. What you are doing is helping your body to arouse long-term antibodies. Or, they may wane over months, but a high concentration of antibodies against coronavirus in your blood system, so that if you are exposed to someone coughs on you who has coronavirus, then your body will already have a defense against it. Okay. All right, so let me make sure. There was one other question, and I'm going to open it up, and I do have another question in the chat here too. Let me just check another question that was given to me. Where is it? Just a moment. Bear with me, please. It's on the WhatsApp. Okay. Question. Let me see where the first part of this question is. All right, here's a question which says like this: if someone took the first dose of the vaccine but had issues and didn't take the second dose out of fear, what are the implications for this? The person's immune system, their well-being, and physical well-being. So, for instance, if you took one of the vaccines which has a two-shot stage, you would get partial protection from the first shot. Okay, you just wouldn't have the benefit of the second shot, but it would be better than if you had no shot at all. So there are no other implications other than that you would be partially protected rather than more fully protected. And of course, no vaccine is 100% protective, but these vaccines in the tests done within in the published research, which I've seen, which I'm happy to share references to, their effectiveness is in the high 90s percent. That is. Okay. A follow-up question was: if the second dose was to be administered, then would the whole process have to be repeated? No. Or can the individual get the second dose having missed it for a 4-month period? For a 4-month period, okay, you would have some decline in antibody presence within your blood, but you would get another. It'd be basically like taking a booster later, So essentially, you would not have any great diminishing of your immune response. Obviously, our hope is that the ultimately, and there are some signs that this is happening, that the pandemic will start to decline and more, and that there'll need to be fewer issues, less worry about that. Okay, so I have another question here. Where do spike proteins go after we take the vaccine? Okay, spike proteins are what is used by the body to generate a antibody response. Okay, ultimately, like all proteins in our body, they are degraded. The body will recycle them and take the amino acids out, break them all up, and they'll disappear. All right, the next part of the question is ivermectin. All right, ivermectin. Ivermectin is an anti-parasite measure. Okay, let me tell you a couple things about ivermectin, how it has been used. It's an anti-parasite drug which has been used against malaria. Okay, which is not a bacteria or a virus. It's a filarial microorganism. It's a parasitic microorganism. I've had malaria in West Africa. I had malaria. Onchocerciasis, which I also saw in West Africa. Onchocerciasis is a parasite borne by a little fly it's a cycle that goes through humans and through some intermediate hosts, and then can cause some serious problems. Ivermectin can clear that. Then there are also parasitic worms and their diseases, like helminthiasis, some of those called by the roundworms, helminths. Scabies, which is a tiny mite that gets there. The ivermectin has been used as an antiparasitic drug. Okay. Now, in tissue culture, SARS-CoV-2, meaning that they were growing the virus in tissue culture and they threw ivermectin into there, they found that it did help to inhibit replication of the SARS-CoV-2 or the COVID virus in cell cultures. But the studies showed that in order to achieve blood plasma concentrations of ivermectin to have the effect on a whole human being, you would have to take a lot of ivermectin. Now, let me warn you about ivermectin. Ivermectin is a poison, okay? It is a poison for parasites. It's a poison for you too. The hope is that it kills the parasites before it harms you. That's the point of ivermectin. And so the evidence is you would have to have doses 100-fold higher in order to get the same concentrations that they were able to get in the cell culture experiments with it. Poison control centers in the United States have been having to deal with people calling in because they were getting ivermectin poisoning, taking ivermectin as a way of trying to cure COVID. In the most cases, except in the case of certain antivirals, like maybe ganciclovir, or anyway, there are different ones. In the cases of certain antivirals, there is really nothing much that can be done once you have the virus, except to make sure that they treat the symptoms so that you'll survive if you have a pneumonia, etc., etc. All right, menthol crystals, are they a good home remedy? No. Please don't take menthol crystals. Okay. It would be possible for you to poison yourself if you overdid those. I wouldn't take those. Little menthol adds some strength into chewing gum or something, but I wouldn't take it as a medicine. Are the traditional vaccines like Sinopharm and the Cuban vaccines? Well, the Cuban vaccine is a vaccine. Sinopharm is not a vaccine. So the Cubans, of course, have done very good medical work, and so they model how a developing world country can do some world-class biomedical work, and certainly I applaud them. They have done a good vaccine, as have the Russians too. Safer than the gene-based vaccines. First of all, the COVID vaccine is not a gene-based vaccine. Okay, it is a vaccine which contains RNA. All viruses in this sense, all vaccines are gene-based in that they have viral genes which produce proteins which causes your body to awaken an immune response. But it is not gene therapy. It is not a gene-based vaccine. Is the oral vaccine being developed in Israel likely to be as effective as the injectable vaccine? I don't know. I have not seen the results yet from that. Certainly the oral polio vaccine was very effective back in the day. So, and that is the questions that I have. That one question I may have missed the first part of, but I don't see it in my WhatsApp. So, and I did answer the voicemail one. So, any other questions?
Dr. Gear.
Yes.
A set was sent to you today by myself and Dr. Cassimy this morning.
All right. Let me just see if was that the one forwarded. Here, this one.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Here, yes. All right. That explains how you got to 35 questions, right?
Okay, great.
Roughly, yes. There, I have 11 more questions here. Yes. All right. Is the current injection a vaccine according to the CDC definition of a vaccine? Does it contain the dead coronavirus, which is typical of what is contained in a vaccine? No. It is. In this case, it is not a dead corona. Of course, viruses aren't alive or dead, but what they mean by a dead virus would be a whole virus vaccine. This, in fact, is not a whole virus vaccine. This takes some parts of the virus and uses that to arouse a response. So yes, it is a vaccine. mRNA vaccines have been used with other diseases as well, not just with coronavirus. So it does match the definition of a vaccine. Does this vaccine stay in the arm or does it travel to organs within the body? It goes wherever your blood takes it, okay? But you're gonna feel it especially in your arm because that's where, but then as your body is clearing out the inflammation from the immune reaction, which is healthy, okay? In other words, you want an immune reaction to something, then it will transport the antibodies throughout your body, correct? They do not give vaccines intravenously, they give them intramuscularly, meaning they put them in your muscles, not directly into your veins. All right. As it relates, okay. What are the implications of it traveling through the body? If you've got antibodies for a disease, you want them to travel throughout the body. Of course, the vaccine, again, is not injected directly into the bloodstream. It is injected into the muscle so that the immune system has time to mount a defense and to be aroused by the vaccine. Basically, the vaccine is an educator of the immune system. It says, look, check this out. Here is something that is threatening to you, but without making you sick, in the way that the disease itself makes you sick, it arouses a response against that disease. As related to epigenetics, what is the possibility of this vaccine turning off or on specific genes in the body? Okay, good question. Epigenetics simply means upon genetics, above the genetics. What that means is the way that the proteins that are on top of the genes that help them to express or not be expressed. Okay, this is the way, for instance, epigenetics is the way that alcoholism is transferred, or stress, post-traumatic stress is transferred from a mother to a child. It's not because your genes are actually changed by alcohol. It's because if your parent developed the habit of alcohol, certain epigenetic changes happened in their response to that, which can be passed on to an unborn child. Okay, so that's what epigenetics is. The vaccine itself arouses the immune system. It doesn't go and change your epigenetics or your gene expression. So no. What guarantee can you give this vaccine will at some point stop the creation of the spike protein in the body? Oh, well, first of all, the spike protein, the spike proteins being created in the body and all the other proteins being created in the body can happen in two ways. If you catch coronavirus and you get sick, which you most likely will, and especially if it's severe, you will have millions of spike proteins and whole viruses produced by your own cells, which will boil out. Basically, the virus hijacks your own transcription machinery, makes a bunch more copies of itself, and passes it on to cells around it to make you sick. You will, fever and all the rest of it. Of course, fever is one of the signs that your immune system is fighting for its life there, basically. All right. So the disease itself produces spike proteins. The vaccine itself puts not the whole virus into you like would happen if you had the disease, but puts the spike protein there without the pathogenic properties of the virus itself, so that your body can mount a defense against it. The spike, once the vaccine is finished and your body, meaning that it has aroused the immune system, your body will not continue to make spike proteins. I mean, it would be nice if it did, because then you'd be immune for life potentially, but that isn't going to happen. So it'll taper off and the immune antibodies, of course, taper off as the antigen, which is the foreign protein, declines. But those antibodies can circulate for some of our vaccinations, can circulate for years in the body. So, I mean, I've had the yellow fever vaccine and smallpox before when I was young, vaccine and so forth. There are probably still antibodies of those diseases in my against those diseases in my bloodstream. All right, so, or in my body. All right, so what guarantee can you give that the vaccine will okay, there we are. How effective is this vaccine against the several variations of mutations of the vaccine? Well, first, it isn't mutations of the vaccine, it's mutations of the virus. And if the general viral protein is vaccinated against, most of the mutations, the vaccine will continue to provide protection against the basic protein, which will include where the variants are located. In order to prevent the further rise of more variants, we need to have fewer people getting sick, because the more viruses evolve when people spread them. Basically, when they hijack this person's cells, produce a bunch of virus, they cough and sneeze and give it to someone else, and then it spreads there. That's where those variants evolve, sort of like has happened in India with the Delta variant. Okay. All right. Some people have had blood clots, and some have had heart problems or even increase in allergic reactions. Yes, this is part of what I addressed earlier there with that. What is the reason for the rise in these incidences after taking the vaccine? Well, the allergic is because of preservatives that some people are allergic to. A very few people are allergic to within a vaccine. So therefore, the way that is treated is they watch for signs of a reaction, and then they give you an epinephrine, which will stop the which will stop the allergic reaction, just like saving someone's life when they've been stung by a bee when they're allergic to that. Blood clots can arise from the virus itself. Crossing from the virus itself has been known to result in blood clots. And if you had part of in some rare cases with the Johnson & Johnson with the vaccine, with the adenovirus vector, by vector we just simply mean the carrier of the coronavirus spike proteins. In some cases, if those cross the blood-brain barrier, you could have a plot. There have been very few cases of that, and that's the caution I give with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. All right, what level of certainty can make sure I didn't miss something. What is the reason for the rise in these instances after taking the vaccine? The rise in the incidences are not primarily from taking the vaccine. I mean, anytime you have a large number of vaccinations, you're going to have a few people that are going to have allergic reactions, and so that would account for that rise there. As far as blood clots are concerned, that has mostly been or heart problems, etc. That has mostly been a very small group of people. However, the coronavirus itself can lead to blood clots, and certainly millions of people have contracted coronavirus. The long-term effects of coronavirus, we still don't know for sure, but long-term heart and other effects are known to be connected with coronavirus, which apparently can cross the blood-brain barrier. So is it possible for there to be strokes or heart attacks or embolisms or blood clots? Yes, that risk is there. So please don't catch coronavirus. Yes. And of course, as far as you should always talk, if you're on blood thinners or things like that, always talk to a physician in any case, and be sure and be aware of the allergies which you have had before to anything, food allergies anyways. Be sure and tell your doctor about those in any case, with your before you take any vaccine or any treatment. Actually, they should always ask you before they give you penicillin or whatever, have you had a reaction to this before? In that case, when you have the vaccine, stick around. Don't leave immediately. Let them watch you and observe. Make sure that you aren't having an immune reaction. I mean, a allergic reaction. You do want the immune reaction. That's the reason we take it. All right, we are told. So what level of certainty can the public be assured that there will not be the surging of unknown side effects in the future? Well, the side effects of the disease we don't fully know yet, although we know that there are plenty of them, long-term effects, hence the long COVID symptoms. The symptoms of being vaccinated should be the only long-term effect should be an increased immunity against coronavirus. As far as in allergic reactions, those happen within minutes. Those don't take hours or years or whatever to form and persist. We are told by authorities that after taking the vaccine, the person can still become infected with the virus. They can spread the virus. They still need to wear a mask and practice social distancing. What are the real benefits of taking this vaccine? Okay, it is possible for someone to be a carrier and not be symptomatic. That's true with the disease itself. The benefit, of course, of taking the vaccine is that you're less likely to get the disease, much, much less likely. And if you are in that small group that does catch the disease, it's going to be a much lighter case of the disease. As far as spreading the virus, I mean, the virus could be, you may not be sick yourself, but if you've touched something that is contaminated, you could potentially spread it to somebody else that way. Social distancing is more social distancing, of course. I mean, that social distancing can actually protect you from all kinds of viruses as far as that's concerned. But hey, we've been able to hug each other and whatever for millennia without a problem. Of course, we've also spread a lot of diseases. Mask wearing should basically be around people who are sick. Okay, just like a surgeon, you want them when they can so easily give you an infection, they're opening up your body. You want them to wear a mask in large crowded places because the virus is still present, and because you don't want to be a carrier yourself. Even if you are vaccinated and immunized, you don't want to carry it to someone who has a compromised immune system, or who is elderly or underlying conditions, or a child, and transmit it to them unwittingly. So those are reasons to be careful now, at least until things improve with the pandemic. So, all right, why is there very little treatment when a person gets infected other than the ventilator? Well, the problem with all viruses, and the most infectious virus known to human beings or set of viruses are the common cold, right? Is that once you get it, you can decrease the symptoms by taking certain things, but you can't actually get rid of the virus until the body goes through the process of going and taking care of the virus. So in this case, prevention is far better than having to treat it afterwards, because you have to deal with the fatigue. They have to watch your blood levels. My wife just went out in a parking lot at her clinic to test somebody who had 104 fever, and their blood oxygen levels were 74%. Your blood oxygen levels should be over 96%. Okay, and she said, "Yeah, you've got to go to the hospital because you could be in real trouble." Now, if they catch it early enough, they may be able to help him not to have to go on a ventilator, maybe just some supplemental oxygen in his nostrils, but not have to actually intubate him, which is a very dangerous procedure. Part of the reason for that is intubation itself can cause permanent lung damage and brain damage. Why? Because that high pressure oxygen can be forced across the blood-brain barrier too. I have request, if they need to ventilate me to let me die in peace, whatever the illness, I do not intend to be ventilated ever personally. So my wife knows that, and so she'll know how to dispose of me if, in that case, to let me be. Why is hydroxychloroquine not being used as a treatment? Again, hydroxychloroquine is a antiparasitic. Okay, I have taken chloroquine when I got sick with malaria in West Africa. That was the way I prevented it from becoming worse. Chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine, again, it's a poison. Okay, and there are people who have been poisoning themselves with it, trying to treat. It is not that effective against a virus. You have to try to build your immune system up, keep your lungs clear, take care, do your breathing exercises, take your vitamins, all of those things to try to get over a viral infection. Hydroxychloroquine is not a cure. However, it can save your life in the case of chloroquine can save your life in the case of catching malaria. So it's good for its purposes, not so much for this purpose. Why are government officials not pushing the use of vitamins C, D, zinc, etc., for people to treat themselves at home? Oh, yeah, CDC, governments, etc., they always, always take your vitamin C, your vitamin D, get plenty of sunshine, take your zinc if you feel a sore throat coming on. All those things are good, but they will not cure your coronavirus if you get it. If you get a common cold, zinc and vitamin C and all that can decrease some of the symptoms of the cold, but the cold will still have to run its course. And that covers that set of questions. Okay, someone asked another question here in a text to me. Says the menthol crystals would be placed in hot water and the steam inhaled. Perfect. Yes, I understand what you're saying now. That's like Vicks or one of those that you could put. That is to help you if you have cold or sinusitis, or if you have trouble breathing. It can help open up your airways some. Obviously, that is not a substitute for not getting the coronavirus. I would please avoid the coronavirus and save the menthol crystals for common colds and things like that. If you had viral pneumonia, menthol crystals could give you some relief. It would not be a cure though for it. Okay, the virus will have to run its course, whatever the virus is, for the most part. Other questions?
Who's moderating?
Are you through, Doc?
I've covered
Okay,
all the
great.
questions that have been sent to me.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you so very much. That was a marathon, and I know you may be a little bit tired, but thank you for hanging in there. I am sure there are follow-up questions and clarifications.
Yes, somebody raised their hand here. I see someone has raised their hand.
Yes, Pastor. Yes.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Greer.
Good evening, sir.
I must start off by saying that I'm not anti-vaccine, but neither am I pro-vaccine. As you made your presentation this evening, you basically have the platform by yourself. There's no other scientist here to agree or refute anything you have said. And I'm sure, that there is a lot of information out there. I've certainly seen a lot, read a lot. And based on my experience, there are certainly lots of scientific arguments on both sides for the vaccine and against the vaccine. What I must say, just to be transparent here, is that after listening to your presentation and answering the questions, I'm actually more nervous about the vaccine than before. I say that because the presentation that is given presents a very flowery picture of the vaccine as what I'm left feeling is that this is the panacea. This is the way to go. And there is nothing wrong with it at all. It's just all good. That's how the presentation came across, as if there's nothing wrong with it other than what you talk about, the preservatives that may cause some allergic reaction. My nervousness comes from several things that I wrote down here, because my understanding of the human body is that when foreign substances enter the body, they do have effects. We can call them side effects or whatever scientific term. I'm not a scientist, I'm a pastor. However, as I listened to your presentation, and a few weeks ago, Dr. Baldwin made a presentation, and he highlighted the effectiveness of the vaccine, and he talked about the 95% versus the 5%. Okay? When I look at that number, and I say, let's say in America, there are 350 million people. I think that's the number. One of the questions that I'm left with is that how many lives are not important? Because if 350 million people take the vaccine, at the best case scenario, it means that 5% of people will die, which means 18 million Americans would die after taking the vaccine because it has a 95% effectiveness. When I listen to your presentation this evening, I also hear you say that the coronavirus will kill only 2%, which is a far less number than the 95% effective rate. And so therefore, it leaves me pause as to, if it is only going to kill 2%, why do we need to take the vaccine when the vaccine is only 95% effective? That's one of my concerns. You may address that now, but I do have some other concerns based on the presentation.
So first of all, the effectiveness of there are two different things, right? Okay. A virus's fatality rate, which is 2-3, it depends, 2-3%. People catching the virus die Okay, that is the fatality rate of the virus. Of 100 people who caught the virus, 2 to 3 will die with the virus. That's what that says. The effectiveness of the vaccine, which is higher than 95%. Okay, what that doesn't mean that the other 5% are going to die. That means that the other 4%, because 96% effective is the best. The Moderna vaccine is 96% effective. All right, and I'll put the statistics. In some cases, it's higher, etc. That means that 5% of the people or 4% of the people who receive the vaccine, still might catch coronavirus. Okay, still might catch coronavirus, but it will be a lighter case. It's almost assuredly a lighter case of the coronavirus. Okay, that's what that means. Now, certainly 100% of Americans have not been vaccinated. The number is about 53% or something like that now. Okay, of Americans who have received the vaccine, maybe a little bit higher if the figures have gone up since I last heard. What I can tell you from direct observation on the ground is the cases that are coming in with coronavirus now and are being hospitalized and are dying are almost exclusively from people, from the unvaccinated. Okay, no vaccine is 100%, no cure is 100%, nothing is 100% in this world, right? Okay, but what you have is the chance to reduce a risk. All right, and it's always about weighing risks. Okay, everything we do in the world has some danger. Okay, it's quite possible that somebody in this meeting could get on the road afterwards and be killed in a car accident. Matter of fact, that likelihood is not zero. I'm afraid to say, sorry to say, it is not zero. That possibility that could happen on a busy road. Okay, it is possible also that one of us here, somewhere here, already has a fatal disease that we are fighting against, a cancer or something unknown like that too. All right, perhaps long-term toxicity from a chemical spill that happened in your place we grew up, or something, a petroleum factory, etc. What we're talking about here is a disease which has affected tens of millions of people across the globe and has killed several million people. Okay, those who have perished from anaphylactic shock, which would be the largest group whom the vaccine has harmed, meaning that they did not get the epinephrine for an allergic reaction, would be a very small, orders of magnitude less than those whom the disease has killed. And by an order of magnitude, we mean a factor of 1,000. Okay, so multiple orders of magnitude less than, many orders of magnitude less than. So again, nothing is perfect, but it's a matter of weighing risk.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
I want to address the issue of immunity.
Yes.
I don't think you adequately responded to the question as to whether or not this mRNA stays in the arm. You did say that the spike protein travels throughout the body, but this mRNA that was created was coded in a specific way, which means that it is going to attack, or not attack, but create some antibodies for a particular strain of the coronavirus. When we talk about immunity, the question becomes, can a person develop immunity without vaccine? In other words, when this coronavirus started, there was a lot of talk that there were people who actually contracted the virus who did not have symptoms. They were asymptomatic. Are we suggesting that those people did not develop immunity? And are we suggesting that the only way to develop immunity is to take a vaccine? And if the immunity is developed by taking this vaccine because it creates these spike proteins that travel throughout the system, is it not true that in our immune system, there is a merger where you talk about it creates this army of defense against the virus? Isn't it true that in creating that army, there's a merger that takes place where the natural immune system, some of that is rendered weak or ineffective in order for the new army that is being created by the spike protein to do its job?
Okay, you've asked me 5 questions. I need to take them one at a time. So,
okay,
all right.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Let's start with your first one again. Would you repeat your first one again? Because as I recall,
the issue of immunity. I mean,
okay.
it seems like from the presentation, immunity is going to be developed through the vaccine because it's going to create this army that's going to build a strong defense against coronavirus.
All right.
Are we suggesting, because there is very little talk about lifestyle?
Okay.
And how that can help.
Let's back up. You've added another couple of questions. So let me go back to your first question, which was, does this, you have not responded adequately to the question about whether the spike protein, about how whether the RNA goes throughout the body. Okay.
Right.
Whereas saying the spike protein does. Okay. So let me clarify there. So essentially what happens, there is no spike protein without mRNA, okay? mRNA itself breaks down very quickly, right? mRNA does not last long itself, okay? What our immune cells do, as they would do with any virus, okay, what they do is they latch on to the foreign protein, okay? The immune cells with their antigen presenting antibody, basically what happens is the cells come and gobble up the virus or the foreign protein or anything, and then it presents that foreign protein on its own surface there. That's called an antigen presenting cell. And the other, that's one immune cell, and another immune cell comes with the antibodies on its surface by contact with this one and latches on to that. And that reaction causes the body to mount a defense against the invader. Both of them, there is no separate army or anything like that. It is your own body that mounts the defense, okay? Your own body, if you catch the coronavirus, your own body is going to mount the defense in the same way as if you get vaccinated, the very same way, except you don't get sick, okay, with the vaccine. Why? Because all of the toxic parts of the virus itself are not injected into you. It's not a live or an intact virus, which is injected into you. Okay. Now, the part that goes throughout the body are the immunocytes. That's the part that goes throughout the body, carrying the antigens and the antibodies for that. The highest concentration are in the places where the vaccine was put to begin with, but the education that happens there builds up all over the body. So for instance, let's just say that I cut myself and I'm out at the beach and I get some bacteria into it. I'm going to have a swollen, inflamed area where the cut is. However, my whole immune system is activated and turned on by that local injury there, like that. And that is your own immune system doing that. That is not, now if I were to attempt to introduce hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin or some other poison in there, then I have a truly foreign thing that is that is a cytotoxic. In other words, it's a cell killer that goes in there to try to treat. It doesn't effectively treat the virus as effectively as your own immune system does, which is the prevention that we're talking about there. So, is there a way besides vaccination to develop an immunity to coronavirus? Absolutely. By catching the disease, that's the way to develop an immunity to it.
Is that the only way other than vaccine?
That's it. Those are the two ways to have immunity against the coronavirus, is either to catch the disease or to be vaccinated against it. For the people that are asymptomatic, they got off light. For the people that the virus killed, too late. Your immune system wasn't strong enough to overcome the viral infection, you see. So, but aside from those routes, your body does not know this virus, and it does not have a natural defense against it until it is aroused by your immune system, by the introduction of the foreign protein, either by catching the disease or by a vaccine.
Okay, I have two more questions, and then I'll give other people a chance.
Sure.
My other observation is relating to the subject of epigenetics.
Yes.
And DNA. Per the CDC, epigenetics is not about changing your DNA. I notice you emphasize that the DNA is not changing, but the CDC doesn't say that your DNA changes. What it says is that the genes begin to read differently the molecular structure of the DNA. So the genes start functioning differently in terms of how they are reading the DNA. And that can happen by the introduction of anything foreign into the body. Is that not true?
Okay, so epigenetics, so genes, let me see if I can show a picture so I can show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, epigenetics is the way in which genes are regulated. So our genes, here's an image right here. Okay, so just let me show this image to you so you'll see what I'm talking about. All right. Here is the way that our chromosomes, here's our chromosomes with our DNA in there. Okay. Now, within the chromosome, the chromosome contracts, opens up during cell division and closes down during the actual dividing process and so forth. And genes are expressed when these proteins which constrict the genes like this, these histone proteins, are unraveled. Okay, so a factor comes in and unravels a gene, allows a particular gene to become active,
right,
when otherwise it would be inaccessible because it's folded over these proteins, you see. Right. Okay, now if let's just say that I drink alcohol, all right, okay, the gene that produces the enzyme which detoxifies my alcohol is forced to be expressed much more because my body is constantly having to detoxify alcohol, you see. So therefore, I pass my if I'm a lady and I get pregnant after I've been an alcoholic, I can pass on that overexpression of alcohol dehydrogenase or whatever, something that digests and tries to deal with the alcohol. Okay. Ordinarily, what we want our genes to do is our genes to respond to the environment, and the genes become expressed epigenetically to meet whatever emergencies we find ourselves in the world with. For instance, if we've been exposed to radiation, which damages DNA, we want those genes which do the DNA repair to be epigenetically upregulated so that our DNA can be repaired from all the damage from ionizing radiation, you see. What we want in the case of an infectious disease is for our bodies with the arousal of the immune system to activate those genes in the immune system, or for the immune system, which produce the adaptive immune system, which makes the antigen bearing cells, the presenting cells, and the antibody presentation that happens with cells. So upregulating the gene expression of our immune system is exactly what our body does in response to a disease.
Right.
And it's what our body does in response to a vaccine, which arouses us so that we can have a defense against the disease without contracting the disease itself. Let's say the disease is smallpox. We want to arouse that defense. Thankfully, smallpox is gone now, but we would want to have our body arouse a response so we don't become deathly ill and die with it. So in that sense, epigenetics is, of course, how we live. Everything that happens in our lives causes epigenetic changes. If we develop habits of reading, of good literature, of getting out in the sunshine, of doing exercise, eating a good diet, having a healthy social relationships, all of these things will encourage the epigenetics of our bodies to have a healthier gene response. If we are constantly under stress and our body is producing extra cortisol in our hormones, that constant cortisol poisoning is going to change our epigenetics there and lay the foundation for chronic diseases, heart disease, high blood pressure, all of those sorts of things. So vaccination arouses our epigenetic defenses in good ways, not in bad ways.
Well, I would think that because it's foreign, it can also arouse and turn on genetic responses that can trigger other diseases within the body. I would not think that it is impossible for that to happen. Nevertheless, as you talk about offspring, we do also know that epigenetics also has the power to recalibrate. So therefore, even though certain things are passed on, in a newborn, recalibration can take place, and those habits are not necessarily always passed on to the offspring. But let me go to my last observation.
Pastor Brian, okay. In fairness to the others, I think we have to allow the others to have some question into, or maybe if we have time, we could come back around to you, because we have given a long stretch, and there are others who would like to ask questions too. So
yes, please.
Yes. So let's take on. I McCollum has her hand up for the longest while, so I'm going to take her, and then I think I heard Sister Irene. And then we'll take you, and we keep going on. Go ahead, I McCollum.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Dr. Gray, for your presentation. And now I have some concern. My concern is about the Johnson vaccine.
Yes.
I noticed that you gave us more or less a caution on that one. So suppose I got the Johnson vaccine, which is 1 dose.
Yep.
And hearing you tonight, I got scared and said, okay, let me go and take the Pfizer vaccine, which should be 2 doses. Is there anything wrong in mixing them? And the other question is, can someone be over vaccinated?
Right. Okay. So if you mix the vaccines, that's not a major problem there in itself. I mean, suppose you were around COVID patients all the time as a healthcare provider, you would want to be over vaccinated, if you will. You would want, and your body would be mounting a response constantly to the fact that you're being exposed to someone's viruses regularly. The caution with the Johnson & Johnson is that there have been a few cases, because it is a new technology, with the adenovirus vector of it crossing. the blood-brain barrier. If you are in general good health, not having good blood pressure, good cholesterol levels, all of that sort of thing, the likelihood of you having any complication with it is very, very low. Okay, and if it's been several months since you had it, it's probably almost gone now, or at least much reduced. The fact, if one has taken Pfizer after that on top of it, you don't have the caution that I gave with Johnson & Johnson. The Pfizer will just up your antibody count. So I wouldn't worry about that. Did that answer your question? Did I miss part?
Yes, I think you've answered it. So that means I should not be too much afraid then. I shouldn't be afraid.
No.
I could go and take the Pfizer vaccine. Possibly.
Yes, correct. I wouldn't worry about that too much.
Oh,
someone asked a question in the chat, which I don't want to miss here. Can I take COVID vaccine? Sorry? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead with the question in the chat. Are you finished, Imogene?
Yes, I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So it says, could I take COVID vaccine if I took the hepatitis B vaccine? I got that my last shot in July. I took it because I want to protect myself against the disease hepatitis B, which is a very good idea, particularly if you're a healthcare provider. Yes, that's fine. Your immune system, that all you're doing when you take a vaccine, what you're doing is educating your immune system to recognize a disease before the disease actually comes. So should not any problem at all. So, when I went to Africa, I had a whole series of shots. And when I went to the Middle East, had a whole series of shots. I was sore. I had some days of not feeling that great, but that was my immune system getting all geared up to face whatever diseases I might encounter in a place which was not the area I was used to being, you see. So no problem there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sister Irene. I think I heard you earlier.
I understand what Dr. Greer say about the my husband with all these complications. He said to let Bernard go and talk to his doctor to see if he could take it. I understand that.
Okay.
Someone said you cautioned us against the Johnson & Johnson. Yes, I just gave a note of caution. I'm not saying that you will that you're going to have a big problem if you have taken the Johnson & Johnson. It's just a little bit experimental. That's what I say about that, and it has those rare complications. What about AstraZeneca? It's one of the regular mRNA vaccines. I don't know of any problems with it. As far as I would say that it would be right up there with the others. It's not as widely known, not as widely given as Pfizer or Moderna, but certainly the one that right now that they do say of these major ones that we've mentioned that seems to have the longest lasting highest level of immunity is the one-shot Moderna, okay, which that company is actually named Moderna. The name has RNA in it, so that was one of their specialties, is the development of that.
Thank you, Doc. A quick question here. One great concern that people have is that the vaccines are a great danger to our health. They will cause you to get sick. They cause blood clots. Some people, the vaccines are just dangerous for our health. What would you say about that?
Well, I would say that I would say, well, one has to give a little bit of history. to that sort of thing. There was a study with 12 patients published, okay, in the late 80s, which pretended to find, did not actually find statistically or otherwise, because it had a sample size of 12, okay, that there might be a link between vaccination and autism in young children, right? Okay. The authors were forced to, they had to withdraw it because no one could duplicate the results of their study. When you actually did thousands of vaccines rather than just 12, thousands of cases, you found no evidence of the link, and it had to be withdrawn. What happens with ideas, as Mark Twain put it, he said, falsehoods can go around the world while the truth is still getting its boots on, and sometimes ideas can spread which are ill-informed, and they spread because people are skeptical of many things which are said to them anyway, but good and bad can get mixed into this spread. So as far as the COVID vaccines being dangerous to the health, the statistics show that it's very, very low evidence, very, very few cases. Most of them would likely be from the allergic reactions, okay, that are not immediately treated, okay, where there have been complications, whereas the risk on the other side of the disease is actually already millions of deaths which have already occurred from the disease COVID.
Are you saying that millions of people have died from COVID? Yes. However, to this point, millions have not yet died from taking the vaccine?
No.
Is that what you're saying?
I would say many lives have been spared by taking the vaccine. Millions of people have not died from taking the vaccine, not even hundreds or dozens. It's a very small number. Out of the millions of vaccines which have been given, it's a very small number.
So you're saying that the benefits outweigh the risks?
By
the benefits of taking
by multiple orders of magnitude, factors of 1,000, yes.
Wow. So tell me something. What about the time for the test of the vaccine? There are some people who say that other vaccines were tested over years before they were introduced to the population. These vaccines, from all appearances, were not tested over that long period of time. What would you say to that?
Right, for testing the vaccines. Well, remember back in the old days, before DNA technology, remember many of the vaccines were done using viruses and bacteria before people even fully understood how DNA worked at all, right? Or much less be able to do anything with it. So in other words, back in Edward Jenner's time, when he was first developing the smallpox vaccine using the cowpox virus, what did he have to do? He had to keep testing many people. He had no way of doing it except waiting to see if they got smallpox, if from somebody, if that could take a long period of time. Nowadays, there are quick tests to see if you have an immune response. They can take a blood sample and do a southern blot, well, a protein or a northern blot, an actual histochemical stain to see whether your blood has antibodies for a particular virus, you say. Now, it isn't just a matter of seeing whether your body has antibodies for a particular virus, but also seeing whether those antibodies actually give you protection against a virus. Because of that shortened process and the speed of producing mRNA vaccines, what took years can be shortened into a matter of months now, as far as testing. Conceivably, as the technology advances, if a new really virulent disease arises, as soon as the genome of that virus is sequenced, people should be able to start working on a vaccine to generate an mRNA vaccine, a potential mRNA vaccine within a matter of hours because of the technology. But you would still need the months of testing to be sure that it actually provided protection and that your immune system didn't just chop it up and not have an immune system arousal, you say.
Still in the months, not years.
Right.
I am concerned about the testing period.
Yes.
And you're saying that whereas before it took years to test the validity of the vaccines, you're saying that with the new technology, the months of tests are sufficient?
Yes, it can be much more quickly tested now over a period of months. They had, in times of emergency, people rush, have to speed up things, right? As well. So for instance, when lots of people were dying of polio, lots of children were becoming paralyzed and having to live in iron lungs and everything in the middle of this last century. They did, Salk and Sabine did their vaccines. Jonas Salk, he was the one that talked about the sunlight. Okay. They said, look, children are dying. Let's go ahead and get the vaccine out there. So their confidence in the vaccine grew over a period of months and years. But otherwise, people were losing their children, paralyzed, couldn't breathe, died, with high fevers and all that from polio. So that was before modern DNA technology. If polio was a new disease today, we could respond much faster than it was possible for them to do in prior times.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc. Any other question, please?
It looks like there's a couple of questions in the chat here. Here's one that says, all right, let's see. Did you say the Moderna vaccine can be just one dose? Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay.
Virus. I understand. Let's see. The Moderna. There is a. They are encouraging people who take Moderna to possibly get a booster shot. They're still there, but they're still doing further testing on the booster shot for Moderna, although the booster shot for Pfizer BioNTech has come out. Yeah.
There's another one in the chat. In your response to a person's question, you stated that nothing is wrong with taking different vaccines after taking the Johnson & Johnson. However, here in Jamaica, there is an advertisement that states that you should not mix and match. In other words, stick to only one. Could you address this?
Yes, I would say stick to one. Yes, for sure. I'm saying if you have mixed and matched, it's not the end of the world, right? The thing is, if you did not have an allergic reaction to one, why would you go try another one? Go ahead and stick with the one that you started with, and don't risk having an allergic reaction to a new vaccine you haven't had. Yeah, but they are both vaccines against the same disease, so that's important to remember there. So they do want you. And of course, one of the problems that has happened, my wife has seen it, is people get one shot, but then they don't bother to go back and get a second shot. So they are less protected in the case of Pfizer, which has the 2-shot course. And as far as multi-vaccine courses, for instance, if you were to contract the very deadly virus called of rabies, right? Okay, meaning, and it travels up your nerves. In that case, to save your life, they would have to give you about 20 shots within the stomach, okay, to save your life. 10 or 20. I think they've reduced it down to 10 now. If they determined that you were bitten by an animal whose brain had signs of the virus. Before recent times, 100% of people who caught rabies died. Now they have to put you, there's a Milwaukee protocol, they have to put you in a coma to try to cure you of rabies. So there's a handful of people who have gotten sick with rabies and who have survived. But there's a case where you have to have multiple vaccinations to save you from a very deadly virus,
Great. G. McCollum?
Yes.
Have a hands up?
Yes.
Could you come in, Georgia?
Hey, good evening, everyone. A question for those persons who are wary of taking the vaccine simply because they realize it's a novel virus or it's a novel strain of the virus with many strains to come. And for those persons who are pro-nutraceuticals, they prefer the natural medicinal home remedies. Would it be okay for those persons to boost their immune system with these types of foods, especially those types of foods that contain phytochemicals, such as your quercetin? Would it be okay for them to just, go ahead and boost their immune system with those until a better or a clearer understanding is there on this strain of the virus?
Right. One should always eat well and boost one's immune system. Nutraceuticals, making sure to eat a good diet, making sure to get sunshine, and do all of those things. One should always do that. One should do the one and not leave the other undone. Okay. The reason why, unless one is able to live in complete isolation, you're not going to encounter anybody who has the virus. Go ahead. But the fact is, we are always encountering people. If I'm going to go to a war, I want to have not only my long knife, I also want to have the Kalashnikov as well. So I'll use everything that is available to me to deal with a very dangerous enemy, which is the virus.
Okay. Are you still Georgia?
Yes. So in other words, we should, while we're pushing for the vaccine, while we are all pro-vaccine, at least I am pro-vaccine, it is imperative that we maintain a healthy lifestyle. I find that we are pushing the agenda for vaccination, but we are not upping or pushing the agenda of a good lifestyle, eating well, as you mentioned, and sunlight. And so for those persons, I would add that if it is that you are pro-nutraceuticals, that's quite fine. But like you said, how about you strengthen your army with vaccination? Thank you.
Yes.
However, Doc, let me be devil's advocate and follow up.
Okay.
Earlier on, you said that there are only two ways of being immune to the virus. That is catching the virus or taking the vaccine.
Right.
So what's the point of building my immune system by eating naturally, by a healthy lifestyle?
Okay. Well, the fact is, if you do not have a good immune system, okay, if you have a weakened immune system, meaning you've not been taking care of yourself, you've been losing sleep, you've been high levels of stress, your immune system is weakened. Your immune system cannot respond positively to either the virus or to its vaccine, okay, because you've not been taking care of things otherwise. All right. Now, unless you are one of the rare people who have no immune system, okay? And that does happen. For instance, people that have taken very severe cancer treatments, which involved a lot of radiation and chemotherapy, their whole immune system can be knocked out. And it takes time to rebuild that immune system because they have radiation poisoning and chemotherapy poisoning. Okay, in those cases, you do have to they have to live in a bubble until their immune system is built up again and they are off radiation and off chemotherapy.
Yeah, but my question is, can a person develop 100% immunity to corona, for example, by a healthy lifestyle, a strong, healthy lifestyle? Can the person develop 100% immunity to the virus?
Not to any specific virus. You can only develop immunity to something you have encountered, okay? Either as the virus itself or as its vaccine. So for instance, in other words,
so therefore, a healthy lifestyle across the board is not a 100% protection.
No, the reason why, remember,
it helps.
Our immune systems are the results of a long evolutionary arms race between viruses and us. Okay, most viruses don't hurt you at all, but they do arouse a little bit of an immune response. Our immune response is amazing in that it can mount a response within minutes and hours of being introduced to a new pathogen. However, if radiation, for instance, were to destroy my immune system, those cells that can deal with it would be wiped out, and then any small infection could come along. For instance, those who acquire, from the HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, the HIV, which produced the syndrome, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, AIDS. Okay, that because that virus replicated and attacked the immune cells itself. Okay, therefore, the people that had full-blown AIDS any small infection, staph infection, a pseudomonas in the lungs, whatever, could take them out. You see, they had no defense against things. Of course, now, thankfully, we have antiretrovirals, so people live normal lives with the HIV. But that shows we need our immune systems. We could not, without our immune systems, we would not have any defense against any virus or illness that comes along. But in order to mount a defense, it has to encounter it. So it has to do battle in order to mount a defense. Yes.
So what we need to do is to make a distinction between immunity and resistance and destruction, because the truth is a healthy lifestyle can mount an immune response once that disease or that virus enters the body, so that it doesn't kill you, but it can resist it. And in resisting it, the body now develops the immunity towards that particular sickness or that disease. If that wasn't the case, we would all be dead in an instant, and none of us would live for any period of time, because we're constantly being attacked. And a lot of what we overcome, it's because of our lifestyle and because we have strong immune systems without taking medicines and without taking vaccines. So we cannot undermine the importance of having a healthy lifestyle and eating right to strengthen our immune system, that when those things come in, it fights it off, so it doesn't necessarily take you out. And because it doesn't take you out, you develop the immunity to that particular sickness.
Yes. So to keep a healthy immune system, you must live right and you must live healthy. But in order for that healthy immune system to mount a defense against anything, it must encounter that specific pathogen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's how it works. Yes.
Yes. It is preferable that with the worst diseases, it encounters it in the form of a vaccine rather than the disease itself. You can be a really healthy person, but smallpox in the old days could lay you at your deathbed within a few days, you say. There are viruses, for instance, some of the filoviruses that, like the hemorrhagic fevers, like Marburg virus or Ebola. No matter how healthy your immune system was, there would be a high danger that virus could overwhelm it and give you a hemorrhagic fever, and hence the fatalities were sometimes 50 to 90% of people who contracted the disease died. Okay, fortunately, those diseases tend to, if the viruses kill their hosts too efficiently, then the disease itself dies out, right? So in other words, those diseases were too effective in some ways, but you still have outbreaks, recurring outbreaks, because there are reservoirs within natural populations of bats and primates in the central Congo and so forth. But in order for you to have an immune defense against a particular disease, you have to encounter that disease, hopefully in the form of a vaccine,
And not in the form of the disease itself.
Okay, any other question? Before I go back to Pastor Brian and then we wrap it up? I think, wow, we've been going in a marathon.
There is a question here that someone put a question here, or a comment, it seems. Yes, it says this. It says, I am due to take the AstraZeneca tomorrow. However, I wanted to get tested since the time between the first and second shot is so far apart. That's fine. If you wish to get tested, that's fine. Yep. Go ahead and get tested if you want. And, they will take a nasal cavity swab and then get your vaccine. No problem.
Okay, we have Suzette, then Alvin.
Yes.
Is it Suzette?
All right.
And followed by
Good
Alvin.
night. Good night, everybody. No, I was the one who asked, who made that statement. Just in case, I may have contracted the virus, God forbid, and I take and I get the shot. What would happen?
Yeah, I understand your question better now. Okay, you are concerned that you may have already been exposed, right, to the virus,
Right.
and that you may have contracted it. They will tell you, please do one thing at one time. Get well first before you take the vaccine. Okay, so if you test positive, they will not give you the vaccine.
What happened when?
Go ahead. Sorry. What is it?
Question, Suzette?
Have you?
I think we lost her.
Okay. Well, she is still present on the Zoom as far as I can see.
Yeah.
But yeah, when her question was, so if she is positive for COVID, then she wants to take care. She wants to take care of that COVID. They will postpone giving her the vaccine until she gets well. Okay, they will do that.
Okay, thank you. Brother Alvin?
Yes, Doc, great presentation. At least you've cleared up quite a few questions that I have, even though my wife and I have actually taken the vaccine. There in times past, earlier on before, it was last year, before I took the vaccine this year, there are a lot of conspiracies, a lot of misconceptions, a lot of different reports. I mean, both spiritually and supposedly scientifically and otherwise, that has come on the social media.
Yes.
And even on the platform that talks about whether you should or should not take vaccine. There are people who are still concerned about it, and there are people who are, for some reason, are just not believing what's going on. For me, I had to make a decision. My wife and I, we had to make a decision as to whether we want to protect ourselves, we want to believe science, we want to be led by the Spirit. It's all of those things that were mixed up, and I thought that we made the right choice. One of my my concern is we some of us tend to be on the premise of finding reason not to take it and be very strong with it, but we are also not concerned about those who never took it and who had underlying conditions and who died from it, right? Some of them were very close to us, right?
Yes.
And my sister in Jamaica, she and her husband got the vaccine, not the vaccine, but the COVID the very same time. He almost died. And when I thought about that, I'm saying to myself, I have to believe something, and I would rather err on the truth or good. You know, it's like if I want to save myself, I want to save myself doing something that has proven to be of some good. So my 2 cents here is to encourage those who are on the fence, because there are so many different injection or interjection of different information that has confused people. Just think about yourself and your loved ones. You know, think about those who you might be coming in contact with. It's one or the other. If you don't take it, consider the person who wants to be protected and think that it is necessary to take it in order for protection. If you don't want to take it, then it's your choice. But let us not be only thinking of ourselves, because there are many who are dying and dying suddenly because they did not protect themselves. I believe, especially when it comes to technology, and I'll always say this because I have seen technology change over the years, from analog to digital to software that's changing things in a second, right? And I look at these things and I use those also to help me to decide on what to do in this case. I think of technology where you had a cell phone with a big battery, walking around in a suitcase or briefcase, you know. And today you have a computer that has a memory that would take up a whole block, is now held in your hand. So why not science, where the technology in science has improved so rapidly in order to save man's life, or to give us a chance of living longer and living a more enjoyable life. So I take the stance of taking the vaccine. You're gonna hear so many different things, some crazy stuff, but we have science. Science is really showing us that we have advanced so rapidly. And it's, I think, while you have others who have other intentions, we have to believe something, and it's like extending my life. That's all it's about.
I understand. Yes, thank you.
Okay, we're going for a mighty long time. I promised Pastor Reed to get back around to him. Yes. If you can make it brief, Pastor, because we need to wrap up now, and then there's one other question that is also being asked. Pastor Reed, your time again.
I just wanted to address the issue of hydroxychloroquine and what is it called? Ivermectin.
Ivermectin, yes.
And you talk about those being poisons, and to say, okay, they shouldn't be used to treat COVID. What my understanding of the history of medicine is that it is not, when it comes to prescribing stuff, it is never an exact thing.
Correct.
And so the doctor prescribes something for me and it doesn't work, and he has to go back and prescribe something else. Or there is a medicine that is good for depression.
Yes.
But a doctor will prescribe that for someone who is having problems with sleeping. Or, you know, one thing for schizophrenia might be used for something else. So medicines are used across different diagnoses.
Yes.
And it seems as if you're presenting that because those particular drugs or medicines, you call them poisons, which I think they're all poisons, are used for parasites, that they cannot be effective in treating COVID-19.
Okay, that's a very good question. Let me address that. I've just on the National Library of Medicine, I've just called up the two things, both hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine and ivermectin. All right, something that one can say is this: people have tried to use those. When I say they are poisons, what I mean is that they do kill parasites. Okay. And like all medications of that kind, they have side effects on humans that can be problematic. However, once someone has contracted certain things, okay, if they have anti-inflammatory and antiviral effects, and which can be used like treating systemic lupus, for instance, with very little adverse reactions. They are a matter of interest as a possible treatment for one getting sick. They are not a prevention, though, of COVID. The vaccine is the prevention. That's the thing. People, you can look at the literature here, and I tried to send some links of literature in the chat, but it didn't work out very, very well. But if you wish to go to the pubmed.government website, which is the NCBI website, Clinton or somebody can pass on the link to you. You can read the primary scientific literature for yourself. You don't need to be dependent, thankfully, on social media or second or third or fourth or fifth hand reports of things where they've actually studied these issues, and there are review papers there too. Here's one here which reviews that, and so forth. The important thing to remember for all of these, because people have been overdosing on these two and have been forced to call poison centers. Okay, there are reports of that from the poison centers, evidently, and the fact is, anything can be useful for a purpose for which it is actually effective. All right, but prevention of COVID, none of these do not give us help there. They may reduce some of the inflammatory response, or maybe the cytokine storm, or some of those things. There are medications which may help. Once you get sick, it's better, though, not to get sick and try to treat it afterwards. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as they say. And the vaccine provides prevention rather than cure.
If I may follow up on that.
Certainly.
I think, as I said in my earlier statement, that there is so much information on both sides, and the science seem to support both arguments. And so I think we have to leave it up to individuals to make that decision as to what they want to do regarding this vaccine. You talk about the prevention. The vaccine is the prevention. However, that statement seems to contradict the science, which says that the vaccine does not prevent getting COVID, because you will still get it. You can still contract it. You can still pass it on. So it is not a foolproof prevention either. And so therefore, it is not a foolproof argument to say, okay, take the vaccine because it is preventative.
Well, 96% effective that's pretty good prevention there. As far as it not preventing you from transmitting, you could still potentially transmit, which is one of the reasons I mentioned about, even if you are vaccinated and so forth, or have had COVID before, you don't want to be a carrier in some way to someone who has not been exposed to it yet. when we say...
But didn't Dr. Fauci say that you could actually contract the virus after you've been vaccinated?
Well, yes, you could have a light case of the virus. You could have a light case of the virus, which might not affect you very much, but because you've been vaccinated, but maybe even asymptomatic, but you may be able to transmit it to somebody else who could get a very severe case, you say. So that's why we still have to take care of the way we spread, germs and all of that sort of thing. Yeah.
All right.
As far as 96% prevention is a pretty good prevention. I'd rather have it than not,
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to close with one final question, just for the record. Lee.
Yeah.
I think the vaccine is a mark of the beast. What do you say?
The mark of the beast.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. We've launched into theology suddenly, but that's fine. Okay. The mark of the so whatever it meant to the first audience in the early 2nd century, which is probably when Revelation was written, end of the 1st century, early 2nd century. All right. It meant somebody compelling worship of an image, sort of like Daniel's story of the 3 worthies on the plain of Dura having to bow down to the golden image, right? So if one is, let's just say that Christianity has foisted a false Christ on the world, and the real Jesus has been forgotten, a likelihood which I think is pretty strong. All right, but let's just say that has happened. People accepting the popular Christ might be accepting the mark of the beast rather than the true historical Jesus of Nazareth, right? So, but in the context of a beast, if a beast system is like someone compelling you to give worship, to put a pinch of incense on the altar to the genius of Caesar, like some of the early Christians did under the time of Diocletian, or things like that. That would, and you go ahead and say, well, it doesn't. I go ahead, I will submit outwardly to this form. That's kind of betraying your conscience. So I would put the mark of the beast in that realm, not in the realm of some biomedical technology. So yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
Well said. Yes.
And just in case anyone missed that, just want to say that the vaccine is not the mark of the beast. And just want the record, so when this recording goes out and people hear that, if you refuse to take the vaccine, it should not be because you think it is a mark of the beast. It's worlds apart, and that's not the case. Let's argue the thing from a scientific perspective, etc., and then make a decision from that angle, but not from a biblical angle. That's certainly not a worthy position to take. Okay.
Clinton, one thing I want to, because I'm not able to do it here, but if you have the contact information of everyone who is here, I'm happy to send you the link where people can look up papers themselves in the primary scientific literature. So, and send you references for them to look at, Yeah,
if you pass them to me, then I can disseminate them, for sure.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, I want to thank you so very, very much, Dr. Greer. This has been a marathon, and we want to thank you. I know it was a stretch, but you did extremely well. And if the audience could give you a hand, I would invite them to give you a clap and say thank you so very much. It was a tremendous service. You recorded it, and we'll be sharing this, with the world. So again, thanks everyone for coming, for bearing. I see most of us have held on for this long while, but this is indeed a service to humanity. Thanks again, Dr. Greer. We really, really appreciate what you've done, and I'm sure you'll be open to return to maybe another forum, some other, presentation, and continue to speak to the issue. At this time, we're going to have our
It's a pleasure let me just say that it's a pleasure to have met you all, and I've enjoyed the excellent questions and the discussion with you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Great. Thank you. Okay, let's have the closing prayer this time. Elder Lyndon, could you be so kind to close us in prayer?
Let us pray. Oh Lord, we just want to praise you and lift you up because you are worthy. There is no other name under heaven whereby we can be saved, but by the name of Jesus. Thank you, Lord, for your sacrifice. Thank you for your forgiving spirit. Thank you for protecting us and for giving us the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. For this evening's program, Father, we just want to say thanks for the privilege of sharing. Well, thank you for Dr. who has come to impart his knowledge to us and to the world. We ask, oh God, as we listen, that we may apply, may we learn, and then may we continue to look to you, who is our guide, our protector, and our great physician. We thank you for hearing us, and we thank you for those who have come to partake in this presentation. Oh God, we are living in dangerous times, but we know that we serve a mighty God. We ask, God, that you will continue to let your Holy Spirit be with us continually. Beat back the powers of darkness and set your people free. May we continue to trust in you. May our hope be strong in you always. At the end, oh God, may we just give you all the honor, the glory, and the praise because you are worthy. Thank you for tonight's meeting. Thank you for those who have come. Bless us, oh God, and may we continue to serve you with love and to serve also humanity. Thank you for hearing us. Give us now a sweet, peaceful, and quiet night's rest. And let your name and your name alone be glorified. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen.
Clinton.
Amen.
Clinton, pardon me, just a second. I noticed that somebody had asked me a couple of questions that I had not answered, and I wouldn't want to leave them there.
Okay.
Yeah. So someone wrote in the chat a few minutes ago, some Pfizer vaccines came to my country to be administered to children 12 through 18, but it was also given to adults of all ages. Is this safe? Yes, the one that they have very cautiously moved the age lower just because of the testing exigencies, and 12 through 18, the immune system is essentially very close, is much closer to the way an adult immune system is. Children that are much younger, of course, they're always getting sick with colds and things like that. Why? Because their immune system is being educated by the viruses which they encounter and the diseases which they encounter. That was so. Yes, it is safe, and ultimately, just like with other vaccines, the age can be moved lower as they proceed cautiously with the research, because like DPT and tetanus and diphtheria and so forth, they now give those to infants because they have been tested so thoroughly over the years. So it is safe. Yes, thank you. That was the question. Thank you. Okay,
great. Thanks again, Doc. Thanks everyone for coming. God bless you real good. Pastor Moses, if you don't mind, could we stop the recording now? And those who are on Facebook, wow, forgot our Facebook audience. Thanks for listening in, and we thank you for joining us as well. We will cease the recording at this time.